Refugees in Cape Town say they have nowhere to go. It's after Home Affairs Minister Motsoaledi gave them an ultimatum. They've been given until Friday to either voluntarily repatriate to their countries of origin or reintegrate into local communities. The refugees are currently accommodated at Paint City and Wingfield temporary sites after forcibly being moved from outside the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees offices. Now, they'd been staging a sitting there in October 2019. For more on the story, we're joined by Home Affairs Minister Motsoaledi and United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees representative in South Africa, Leonard Zulu. Good evening to both of you, and thank you so much for your time tonight. Minister Motsoaledi, let me perhaps begin with you. It's been over a year that these migrants have been protesting the issue of not wanting to be in South Africa, but also not wanting to go back to their countries of origin because of the conditions that they say await them there. What led to government's decision now to issue this ultimatum?
Good evening, Kathy, and let me also greet Mr. Leonard Zulu, the country director of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in South Africa. Kathy, you will remember that when the protesters were holed up in the Methodist Church, the city of Cape Town took them to court, and the court ruled that they be removed and instructed that Home Affairs must check their status, meaning whether they are refugees or asylum seekers or undocumented migrants. That was done, but then Parliament on the 10th of March, through the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs, a meeting that was attended by whips of several parties, said we must give them a choice to be integrated back into communities where they came from in Cape Town, because they didn't really just fall from the sky, they came from communities, or if they don't want, be repatriated to their country of origin. But then we're given 30 days. That 30 days, 2 weeks into that 30 days, COVID-19 happened. South Africa was under a lockdown. Nothing could happen. Only from the beginning of October did we start a movement towards dealing with them. And the United Nations also came in. As you, Mr. Zulu, will explain, they were given a choice that the United Nations will help them if they integrate. If they go back to their country of origin, the International Office on Migration will transport them, will buy them plane tickets. Now, in 7 days' time, we are going to have to remove the facilities there, especially that the Auditor General Office is fighting, Kathy, and the city of Cape Town has already got a negative audit for the simple reason that in all the laws of South Africa, there is no place of camping refugees, because South Africa has a policy of non-encampment. People don't stay in refugees camps. No, if you spend any money there, it becomes illegal. And we have already been illegal for humanitarian reasons for 2 years. Now we can no longer do that. It is actually a lie, Kathy, and I want to repeat, that they've got nowhere to go. It's a lie. 390 of them have already integrated into communities. Nothing happened. 40 of them were already repatriated them back into the DRC. Nothing happened to them. So it's just a choice, because they want to go to a rich country called Canada, and they believe they can use South Africa as a springboard to pressurize the United Nations to take them there, despite the fact that the United Nations has said it many times that that is not going to happen. So we have got no option but to remove all the facilities there. And if they stay in the open, they will be breaching the bylaws, and the law enforcement agencies will have to take action.
Mr. Zulu, from the part of the UNHCR, what advice are you giving to many of those that are affected by this?
No, thank you very much, Kathy. Good evening to you and your viewers, and Minister, also to you, good evening. Good to see you. Our starting point really is that refugees and asylum seekers in South Africa have to respect the laws of South Africa. Since this situation started in August 2019, they have been in violation of the city bylaws, the national laws of South Africa, and also most recently, since the March 2020 lockdown, they've also been in violation of the national regulations that have been put in place to combat COVID-19 pandemic. On the two sites where there is no social distancing. Many of them are walking around without masks. People move in and out without any control whatsoever. So it's really a difficult and desperate situation. Children have been taken out of school by their parents for more than 2 years. All of this to put pressure for resettlement to go to a country of their choice. There have been a mention, as Minister said, of Canada, of the United States, and so on. And this is not how it works. The international conventions, procedures, and standards that we have for resettlement don't work like that. You don't come together in a group and then put pressure on UNHCR to send you on resettlement, because we don't do that. It's the countries, the resettlement countries themselves, that have put in place, in accordance with their laws, a very strict criteria on who qualifies for resettlement. And UNHCR merely facilitates that process. I must also underline that more than 266,000 refugees and asylum seekers live safely in South Africa. We have most of these people go about their own business, work, go to school, and are part of the social fabric of South Africa. It's only this handful, really, 1,000 refugees who have decided upon themselves to act like this against all laws that are applicable, and also beyond reason. So we have not said that, okay, we will not be by your side. Both government and UNHCR have been persuading them, regularly having meetings with them. A mediator has been put in place to try and reach an amicable solution. We have put in place the two options that are for those who can return safely to their countries of origin, freely and voluntarily. We are able to assist with our partner IOM. This is not forcing people to go home. This is just putting there an option. And this option is not only available to those in Wingfield and Paint City, but to any refugee or asylum seeker in South Africa.
So, Mr. Zulu, if I'm hearing you correctly, is the suggestion there that basically these group of refugees have become a law unto themselves and are not interested in finding any meaningful solutions to whatever challenges they may be facing in South Africa, and are rather trying to strong arm and use the situation to get themselves into countries that they deem as being better?
The other option is for them to go back into the communities where they were living. They came from all over Western Cape or the Cape provinces. So they are able to go back, and 390 of them have decided to listen to our requests and our explanations of how the situation is, and have gone back. So they have those two options. The others, they remain intransigent on these two sites, and as government says that there will be a time where they have to enforce the laws of the Republic and help them off these sites and encourage them to leave the sites. And that day, unfortunately, is looming. And I still urge them to listen to what Minister has said, what government has said, and voluntarily return to the communities to join the other 265,000 refugees that live in South Africa safely.
Mr. Motsoaledi, where this relocation is concerned, especially for those who are opting to not go back to their home countries, I would imagine that the scenes that led us here in the first place 2 years ago are something that you'd want to avoid, especially when we think about the kind of confrontations that have happened between some of these refugees and the police, and also how that made international headlines.
Exactly, Katie. That is what they want to play at. We have tried to avoid that for 2 years, because the scenario you are describing, nobody wants to see it, because yes, it damages the name of the country. internationally. And that's why we tolerated this situation for more than 2 years. But it can't go on. As Mr. Zulu has already said, that all the laws of the country are not obeyed, but nationals in this country, South Africans, are forced to obey the laws. But I've already also informed you, their stay there is not free as far as the government is concerned, because we have got to provide shelter, as you see. We have got to provide ablution facilities, water, sanitation, and showers. Now, all those things, they need money, and the laws of the country don't allow us. When the Auditor General audit, they don't audit on the basis of mercy. They audit on basis of the laws. And in terms of the laws of the country, the presence of the people there is not recognized in law as a refugee camp, because there are no refugee camps in this country, Kate. There's no law that
Minister, when you remove
camps.
them, when the police remove them, where will they be taking them to?
Well, we have already said, as Mr. Zulu has said, they did not fall from the sky, Katie. They came from communities. Some of them were actually waking before this dream, this ill-fated dream of believing they can go to a richer country was sold to them. They were coming from communities, they were settled there. Children were at school in those communities. Even up to now, Kate, some of them, as I'm speaking now, they sleep in those tents, but in the morning they go to work. And some of them were even traced where they are staying, that they do have accommodation. But they were told that if they don't report in the tent, if the United Nations succumbs, and which is impossible, of course, and send them to a third country of resettlement, then they won't go. That's why they are actually staying there, even when they've got a place to stay. So all we are saying is we want them to go where they've been, failing which, if they want to go back home, like the 121 we have already agreed, the International Office on Migration will buy them tickets. So that's what we are saying. But for them to tell us they've got nowhere to go is absolutely not true, Kate. It's a lie, actually.
Home Affairs Minister Motsoaledi and Leonard Zulu from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Thank you both for your time tonight on News at Prime.